What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Scale News Update. If you're not familiar with the show, we talk about the news topics that happened in the scale world of RC over the past week. If you enjoy the Scale News Update regularly, hit the like button. Let's jump into this week's topics. First for this week, CrossRC is teasing two new 1/6 scale crawlers. Now, the only 1/6 scale crawler we've really seen in the market for quite some time is the SCX6. And it was never really clear how well that market was doing. We saw a lot of sales on the SCX6s, but again, you never saw anything else. The SCX6 was a lot of fun to drive, but again, you just didn't see this huge following, like building steam. It just kind of maintained possibly. But Cross is going to jump in with these two new options. One, the Maxx with two X's, which I feel like somebody is going to care about. And the MaxXL, the second X being tied to the L. But again, somebody might care about that. We'll see. But one's a 6x6, one's a 4x4, and they look great. It's obviously a departure from the regular trail truck style with the flatbed or kind of like trials course style bed that's on the 4x4 in this photo. But I do believe that you're going to be able to run a more standard, just typical flatbed on the 4x4 as well if you're after that. The 6x6 has a flatbed or kind of like a stake post, tent top rear as an option. There's not any great information about this vehicle available yet. I've only seen it on two websites, one overseas and one here in the US. Big Squid on the US had this posted up, and they mentioned that it was in the teaser stage, which is obviously, again, coming from Cross and being shared in that way, but that's it. The overseas site translations were hard, and I couldn't really gain any other decent information from it. So either way, they look pretty cool. 1/6 scale, why not? Again, large. Let's see how exactly they're executed and what they offer. But a 6x6 6 scale could take up considerable amounts of space. It'll be interesting to see exactly how they spec these things out. We'll touch back on it as soon as we see more solid information from Cross. Speaking of stories without any real solid information, here's a new one from a scale event this weekend where JConcepts was showing off this new body. And we're back. JConcepts is back to their old ways. We've got this thing, the possibly called Wagoneer. It's hitting on all JConcepts cylinders with the style, the design, and the name. It is all what we've come to expect. It's not going to be for everybody. But this, like I said, this was shown at a scale event down in Georgia this weekend. And JConcepts has done this a number of times where they've just brought bodies like this to an event before the official release. And then I bet we'll see something more official from them in the next couple of weeks or so. Let me know what you guys think about the new JConcepts upcoming release. Next, new from Flysky. This is it's a steering wheel that goes on stick radios, specifically a couple of Flysky's stick radio options, and you can replace one of like the gimbals with this unit here. Now, we've seen steering wheels on radios often. I bet some of you have many of them, but typically they're a little different orientation. We've seen radios like that. I think like the original Fatabas back in the day were kind of that steering wheel on the front style. What is kind of cool about this is that it's got a 1080 rotation. So it's 3 full turns of rotation on this. So it's not just like a regular radio where you've got a shorter throw. It's supposed to be a little bit more realistic. So you can get a turn and a half in each direction from the neutral point to give you that feel, which is kind of cool. I would imagine that you would use this on stuff more like either big rigs or maybe construction type equipment where you're trying to get a little bit more of a scale accurate feel. Maybe you could use it on a, super tiny, tired, slow drive around thing where you didn't necessarily care so much about like fast reaction. You wanted it a little bit more scale. So Flysky did do a video showing the installation of this. It's not just like a pop it on situation. You have to disassemble the radio, remove the existing gimbal from there, and then put this new one in and get it wired into place. Not a simple thing, but you know, their instructional video was like 9 minutes or so, which isn't a short video for something like that. But I could see how some people would like this. Greg from RC Driver also did a video on it, and I didn't see if he or what he tested it with, but I'm sure that many of you could come up with some decent options. Bittydesign released 2 new scale truck body options for scale trucks. These are a typical 12.3 inch wheelbase body to be put onto whatever platform that you really are after. Now, there's the Ultra and the Baja, 2 different versions of very similar body styles. The differences are that the Ultra has got a traditional truck style bed with a tailgate and, you know, not a drop bed totally in the Lexan, but a little bit of standard bed detail. And the Baja version is made to fit more of like a spare tire back there. It's a little bit more open, kind of has some off-road style molded details into it, like fuel cell and things like that. Inside, they also show a bunch of interior details or separate pieces that you can use along with this to sell the look. Bittydesign does such a fantastic job with bodies, and these, you know, fall right in there. It also has some like details on the hood that kind of look like turbos would be sticking, or you know, just a little bit exposed through it, which, you know, some of us may like. But some cool new options from them. We'll see these, I'm sure, soon at distributors here in the States, but you can go to Bitty Bodies direct, which I believe they're out of Italy. So that's why sometimes it's worth waiting until we see them in the US to purchase. But if you just can't wait, you can go check out their site. Next, Capo has got a new 1/10 scale Tatra 8x8. Now, they've had these before, but they were of a smaller scale, like an 18th scale option. I think it was called the Cub was the platform that they had. This one is a 1/10 scale. It's got like a 25-inch wheelbase, and it's almost a foot wide on its own. So this thing is massive. It is licensed, and it does have a realistic style drivetrain with that like center torque tube style, and then the independent arms coming off of it like the full-size unit. So that's very cool. Lots of detail. Capo, you've probably seen things from them before if you've been around for a while. It's typically very expensive, and it's not necessarily built to be beat on. Usually they can be used, but with restraint. It's more about detail than it is about functionality or strength. So I imagine this will kind of fall in that same path, although their renderings at this point do show, you know, all metal drivetrain, things like that. It does show a lot of brass in like the gears and things like that, but it's a rendering. So I don't know if that is actually the construction material or just the choices they made as far as illustration goes. But you also can't just see the price on their website for anything. You have to send them an email with an inquiry for the part, and then they will send you an email back with the price, which is always so annoying. Like, just put the price up. People are either going to buy it or they're not. It's so weird, but gives you a little bit of information about that. If you just love the larger scale military stuff, this typically, when you see that, it's like 1/14 scale, sometimes 1/12 scale, I think, but rarely do we see a 1/10 scale version of something this large. New last week from Vanquish products are the machined aluminum bump stops for the H10 platform. These are the functional bump stops that were included with the H10 Origin package, but now available separately to bolt right onto any of the H10s, meaning the kit, the RTR, or custom builds that use the same bolt spacing for the stock molded bump stops that were included. These are available in both a clear anodized housing and a black anodized housing, and the plunger itself, what's simulating the functional bump stop, is a raw machined aluminum. So you check those out, actually spring loaded, the whole deal. Proline by the Fire reminding us to save the date for this year's Proline by the Fire, October 9th through the 11th, and the theme this year is Rockabilly. Perfect. I'll be quite ready for that one. Always a great event. The dates have been shifted a little bit from previous years. I believe that we're maybe 2 or so weeks at least pushed back from what we have seen before. I think last year was like around September 20th. So a couple of weeks delayed past then. Always a great event. One of the best that you can attend in the country, and one that I'm always looking forward to and hope to see a bunch of you there. And speaking of wanting to see a bunch of you there, I'd like to see a bunch of you in my channel membership. Best segue yet. Channel membership helps support the channel. You also get extra videos behind the scenes. You get videos early like the Scale News Update, and you get extra videos like After News Delight, which is an extension of the Scale News Update, where we go back over the topics, a little bit more candid, a little ranty, things like that. But if you're interested in any of that information, I'll put a link down in the description below, and you can check that out. Thanks to everybody, no matter what, for watching. And this week, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, starts season 6 of Livestream Takeover, the 6th year we've been doing that show without ever missing an episode. Every single Wednesday. Last week was great. Hard to follow that up for the first week of a new season, but looking forward to it. Hope to see some of you there as well. Then, if you work for an RC company and you'd like to see any of your products on the Scale News Update, you can send me an email to news@harleydesigns.com. Take a look at that, see if we can get it here in the Scale News. Make sure to include a photo, a description, and a link to where it can be found on your website or when it will be able to be found on your website. Shoot that over. Again, love to take a look at it. This week we had one come in from a company we've never talked about called Elevated 3D Designs out of Colorado. They've got a new chassis option for the Vanquish VRD platform. This also a carbon fiber option. It's got more skid angle, somewhere up around 12 degrees, and the shock geometry has been moved significantly as well, and also with a bunch of holes. So if you want just a ton of options for moving some stuff around, this has got that. You can find this on their website. It does say on there that they try and keep these in stock, but they can possibly be made to order. But, you know, you can maybe shoot an email if you'd like some more clarification on things like that. Make sure and read through the descriptions just to make sure everything is good for you. This week, new from RC 4-wheel drive, some new 2.2 Mickey Thompson licensed Sportsman SR tires. Now these are 2.2s that are under 4 inches tall, like significantly. I think they're like around 3 inches tall or just a hair over, quite short. These are going to be for a very specific look. I think if you know what you're after, then maybe this is fit. They posted it up on a couple of their rigs, one the K10 truck and then the other the Toyota TF2 with the whatever colored this is over here. I can't remember now. Blue and white and yellow and orange maybe. See how close I was on that one. But again, a significantly different look, which I don't hate. I saw this photo and I was just like, okay. I mean, I don't want it, but like I don't hate that. So if you also have terrible taste, then maybe you should check these out. And that's not it for new tires for this week though. UpgradeRC, who is another brand owned by A-Main, has released 2 new 1.9 tires. The first one are the Rock Claws, which we've had a tire named the Rock Claws before, from Losi back in the day. They were 2.2 and they were much more comp oriented, but we have seen that name before. I think it might have been Rock Claws. Maybe there was an S there, slightly different. But these are a kind of like a middle of the ground kind of scale tire, somewhat looking or performance looking tire to it. Available in a couple of different compounds, soft and super soft. And then their other tire is called the Razor Wire. Now these are very Hot Bodies Rover inspired, if you remember those, or then we saw other tires inspired by those, like the JConcepts Rupture. We've seen more that are inspired heavily off of that original tire back from some time ago, and this falls into that as well. Also available in 2 different compounds. So Upgrade has produced tires here in the recent past, mainly or only for bashers as far as I'm aware. So this is their first tires that I've seen them to, jump into in the 1.9 arena. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes or what we see from them as time progresses. But that does it for this week's topics, for this week's question. Something we didn't talk about at all in the news, but for those of you that may have seen my Instagram or things like that over the weekend, I went and did some RC drifting. Something that I've done in the past and, never. Anyway, I did enjoy it this time. So I'm going to give it another honest shot because I had a good time, and there's a shop, a full-time drift track shop not far from me. So got some opportunity to maybe be able to do either way. For this week's question, I want to know what's something that you've changed your mind on in RC over time, whether it be weeks or years apart. What is something that you initially thought one way and then later your tastes, whatever changed, and you came back in a positive light on it? A lot of people, it was crawling. A lot of people were just like, I have no interest in that. It looks slow and boring. And then they finally get into it and they're like, this is obviously better than all of the other areas combined. Maybe not exact words, but close enough. So drop your experiences down in the comments below. I love reading them. It's my favorite part of the Scale News update. But with that, that's going to do it for this week's news topics. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching. Comment, subscribe, consider the channel membership, whatever it may be. But thank you again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.